I'm Bernie Engel, Senior Associate Dean for Ag Research and Graduate Education at the moment. Prior to that, I'd been head of Ag and Biological Engineering, and that's where FieldWatch started. So we'll come back to that, I'm pretty sure. Background, I have a farm background, production agriculture, very typical of what we have here in Indiana from just next door in Illinois. Strong interest in agriculture, engineering, and things that come together at that intersection. That has been my background. That has been where I've worked and continue to work. Steve Smith of Red Gold, tomato producer, processor here in the state, and they had just been having horrible problems with drift. And the conversation continued, something along the lines that, if we go back in time, most farmers lived, small farm, lived very near the center of that farm in many cases, and there was this good flow of communication across neighbors, so you knew what the neighbors were doing, you knew if they had crops that were maybe sensitive to pesticide drift, but we had gotten away from that. Agriculture's gotten bigger for all kinds of reasons. Many people who had been farming, yes, maybe they continue to farm, but they're primarily employed elsewhere. And as a result, we had lost this communication piece. And sort of the conversation went, is there a way with technology that we can reestablish some of this communication across farms, across farmers, and maybe see if we can use that approach to reduce this drift problem? Google Maps. We're very, very early in those days. Didn't have the capabilities that we all enjoy now, or pick your favorite one, same kinds of capabilities, but we didn't have those capabilities. We didn't have the data in those, and so we were trying to stand up primarily environmental, water quality kinds of applications in that space, and so thus the conversation, could we create a mapping tool that would facilitate communication? Really that simple. The idea, if we can facilitate communication, can that lead to reduced drift problems, because people now are aware that these sensitive crops are in their neighborhood, next to them, without the more historical conversations across neighbors. Hey, I've got tomatoes, maybe in the case of Red Gold, that are adjacent to this other crop that you're likely to be spraying. And by the way, my tomatoes are sensitive if your pesticide drifts onto those tomatoes. So really, concept is that simple. And at the heart of FieldWatch, or a part of FieldWatch, that continues to be the core, communication. This is a research project, or a very applied research project in the early days. Thus, Purdue researchers, Purdue graduate students, Purdue staff involved in that. And like many research projects, you start with prototypes, you start with preliminary kinds of work, and then you look for opportunities to grow it. And in trying to grow that, we had some early support from the Environmental Protection Agency here in Region 5, a group of states that include Indiana and some neighboring states. There was strong interest in EPA's part and our part in trying to expand this beyond Indiana, pick up a couple of states, see if this would work. And so Purdue very much involved as a result of that in the early days. Absolutely, it's all about facilitating communication about where are sensitive crops. Certainly, and I think others that are now directing and leading FieldWatch, they've added capabilities. What's interesting to me is that many of the capabilities that are new in FieldWatch were discussed at length in its inception. And I think because of very good advice we got, it was stay heavily focused on that very core of simple communication about where sensitive crops are. The rest will come. Yes, so bees, pollinators. So certainly we all have a vested interest in protecting and supporting pollinators, given all they do in the food system and beyond. Also about protection of workers in fields. So a very recent addition to the tool. As farm workers are in fields doing activities, those are certainly inopportune times to be applying pesticides that may drift into those fields, given the potential for human exposure. So, those are just two examples, and certainly there's some other things in and maybe coming in FieldWatch that had also been in the mix.